Slept on Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Inevitably, the cat and mouse game goes on too long and the tension dies a slow death, a bit like Liv's career.
The Strangers isn't scary, just tedious.
At least it's short.
A cheapo, shaky cam knockoff of a horror film from foreign shores.
If you've seen the annoying trailer for Brian Bertino's singularly pointless debut feature, you've seen all the film has to offer, minus 88 minutes of tedious sadism.
It's just hard for a movie about characters with bags on their heads to have any real teeth.
Bertino's undeveloped protagonists are colossally stupid and frustratingly passive.
An utterly pointless portrait of domestic terror. Welcome to this week's episode of Slept on Cinema. I'm your host, Stan Steamer.
And I'm Grove Street.
This week we're getting into The Strangers, the 2008 horror classic. As always, the movies we review on this podcast have to be below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes for both critics and audiences. And we structure the pod so that the first half is spoiler-free. You can listen along. We'll talk about some things to look for in the movie and then take a break, watch the film, come back, and chat about what we just watched.
I want to get to the rotten premise. Kristen and James are expecting a relaxing weekend at a family vacation home, but their stay turns out to be anything but peaceful. First, a mysterious and dangerous woman arrives at the door while James is out on an errand. When he returns, he accidentally kills his friend Mike, mistaking him for an intruder. And then real danger does show up, in the form of 3 masked torturers, leaving Kristen and James struggling for survival. Critics, 48%. Audience, also 48%. And I'm adding a new score, the cinema score, which I just discovered. The cinema score is a B-. The cinema score is apparently a rating system that's been around since the 70s, that they poll different theaters on opening night when a movie releases and gets a letter grade from F to A+. Well, no horror movie had ever received an A- until The Conjuring. No movie ever, because it seems that horror movies, people want particular things. Some people don't want to be grossed out. Some people do want to be grossed out. Some people want a psychological thriller. Some people want some tension. Some people want action. So a lot of people want different things. You can have a horror movie that's PG and still be super scary. You can have a movie that's R and gory and not that scary. So a wide range for horror movies for people to be satisfied. And this came in with a B-, which is actually a really good score for a horror movie.
Once again, as always, just shocked at the fact that this is somehow below 50 for both on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, the only way I could think that this made any sense is if people who just didn't like horror movies were the ones reviewing it, and they were just saying, well, I just don't like horror movies, so I'm going to give this a bad review, because this movie is awesome. It's just a great horror film. It's scary. It's lean. It's just great.
Yeah, it is really good. And it's the part that makes it really scary is I think it makes you feel like it's possible that it could happen.
Oh, yeah.
But that premise that I just read, I don't think is a good explanation of the movie. Maybe you'll learn a little bit more why that isn't good in the second half of the podcast after we all see it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that I don't know who's in charge of writing those, but that one should be rewritten and that person should be fired.
Yeah, what was going on around the time this came out?
So this came out May 30th, 2008, and as a lot of our movies do, it crushed its opening weekend. It opened third, but once again, this is kind of a third with an asterisk, where I feel like it in many ways opened first. The Sex and the City movie came out that same weekend, opening weekend. You're not going to beat that movie its opening weekend. That movie just has a whole ravenous fans and a whole backlog of people who are used to the show. So that one doesn't count.
Did you ever watch that show?
I've seen a couple episodes, but I couldn't tell you the names of the characters. I couldn't tell you a plot line, but I know people were obsessed with it for a very long time and had been looking forward to this movie for a very long time. So once again, doesn't count.
Yeah, I binged it like 10 years ago and I've seen every episode. I love the way the series ended. Well, not a big fan of the movies.
Were you in the theater for opening weekend?
I was not in the theater. It was very covert watching.
Well, you could have gone in at like an 11 a.m. like matinee.
I could have, but I had the series wrapped up pretty well. I had no desire to see the movie, but I understand that lots of people did so. no surprise that came in number one.
And coming in number two ahead of it, as horrible as this movie is, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, terrible movie, but the Indiana Jones, nothing you can do there. I saw this movie opening weekend. I was very excited about it. Huge Indiana Jones fan. I remember because I not only went in costume, but I went with my then girlfriend, now wife, also in costume to this on Friday of opening weekend. And we had gone to the Red Sox game right before. So we went to the Red Sox game also in costume and then followed it right up with the movie afterwards.
So you were in Indiana Jones garb at the Red Sox game?
Yes, I was Indiana Jones. She was Marion with the amulet around her neck. And I've never had as much fun at a baseball game ever. I was getting high fives from everyone. I was like, Indy, cover your heart. And it's like...
You can't bring a whip into Fenway, right?
I had a whip, and I think they just let it slide.
Sounds like a great day. Is that the only movie you guys have gone dressed up to?
I think so. I can't think of any other ones. And that was such a spectacular disappointment. You know, it may be a while.
Yeah. You probably, all the buildup, maybe it would have been better if you didn't dress up.
I'm so glad I did it. Going to that baseball game was really, really fantastic.
That's awesome.
So anyhow, it comes in third, which asterisk, in my mind, comes in first, that movie, that weekend. And made $21 million that opening weekend off a budget of $9 million. So you're, involved in the production of this. You are feeling great after that opening weekend. Went on for worldwide total over $82 million. So this, if you're talking about multiples, this thing was a home run.
So $9 million budget and made over $84 million.
Over 82, yeah.
Over 82. Wow. Not surprised. It's a very watchable movie for sure.
I'm just shocked there haven't been more sequels, though. Apparently there are 3 sequels now in the works that are going to be coming out soon.
There was a sequel, but it's like it was years later. I hadn't realized they saw it until I saw that tidbit about, they're making 3 sequels that are planning to start in September, that they're going to start filming it. But I had already, there was one that with Christina Hendricks that came out a few years ago. My wife and I saw when we were binging horror movies during the pandemic. Good movie too. Qualifies for a podcast.
Interesting. We might have to circle back.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot of other background here. I don't really think you need to know a lot about this movie, but I did want to just dive into Liv Tyler briefly, just because I think this is one of these movies. It's a director's first film. And I think in a lot of these, I don't know if this is the case here, but I think in a lot of movies like this, you're not able to get it made until you get a star attached to it. And then once you get a star, it's a lot easier to get the funding and to get everyone on board in that. So my guess here is that once Liv was on board, things really got rolling. So she's probably the reason this movie got made. Couple things. One, maybe you knew this. Liv is her full name. That's not short for anything. I was surprised by that.
I did not know that. That is surprising.
Obviously, huge star. She Armageddon in '98, nominated for Blockbuster Entertainment Award, favorite sci-fi actress for Armageddon. Didn't win, lost out to Gillian Anderson for X-Files, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But then she really blew up. Obviously, Lord of the Rings, all the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, those were, I don't know, maybe the most successful movies of all time, at least for a while. So she was a huge star at this point.
She became a star almost just from the Aerosmith videos alone. She was in.
The crazy thing that I'm surprised I didn't know this, and we don't get into sort of stars' personal lives that much on this podcast, but did you realize that her name at birth was Liv Rundgren? She was not Liv Tyler at that point, and she did not know that she was the daughter of Steven Tyler until she was 10 or 11 years old.
I had no idea.
I had no idea. Yeah, so I guess her mother was a former model, Playboy Playmate, Miss November 1974, had been living with another musician for a number of years in the 70s. And in the midst of the time that she was living with this other musician, Todd Rundgren, she had some fling with Steven Tyler. And Liv Tyler was born. Liv Rundgren at the time said it was this other man's child. They later on broke up, and I guess she had stayed in touch with Steven Tyler, and at the time Liv was 10 or 11 years old. They're hanging out with Steven and one of his other daughters. And Liv goes to her mother and says, his other daughter looks just like me. what's the deal here? And Liv's mom comes clean and says, yep, busted. Steven Tyler is your father.
Oh my goodness, that's nuts. She was
It's
10?
10 or 11, yeah.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness. Yeah, that's funny. Like I always saw when I think of like father daughter or father son like combos in Hollywood, I just assume that they've like known about each other since birth because they always seem so close.
right. I mean, it's crazy. It's also crazy because she was such a star for so long, and in a time when I feel like I would have been more up on celebrity gossip. Like I'm just shocked I didn't know this.
Yeah. I mean, we both don't exactly pay attention to the news on like TMZ and celebrity stuff, but that seemed like something that would have been well known.
Yeah, I was shocked by this. So that's all I got. Not a whole lot you need to know about this movie. Really, it's just it's very relatable because there isn't a lot of background. It's sort of just it's a very self-contained, relatable movie.
Yeah, outside of like cell phone here and there, but even like early stages of it, it's a pretty timeless movie.
Definitely agree. Yeah, I feel like we talked about this a lot with sort of does it put you in a time or is it timeless? This falls into that timeless category for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get to Bolos. Be on the lookout.
We go back and forth in movies, I feel like, where we have movies that have so many bolos that are just everywhere you turn. And I think this movie is maybe the most challenging movie for bolos we've had yet. I mean, it is lean, it is sparse. It takes place almost entirely in one house, almost entirely in the dark.
With basically just a couple people who you see. There's not much of a cast in this one.
Yeah, which is part of what makes it so great. But this was, for me at least, a challenging bolo.
Yeah, experience. For sure. I definitely reached on a few. It wasn't exactly like our list for what we did last episode, Eraser. It was like we could have gone on all night with bolos, but this was certainly very, very lean. But some really good ones, though.
Definitely. I feel like there are some great ones here.
I'll start out and get it out of the way. Bolo, Dennis from Always Sunny.
And his character arc is just fantastic. It's great.
It is.
So this one comes up twice, and this is one of these. I'm sure there's some sort of symbolism here that went over my head. But bolo, a heart-shaped hole.
Good one. Bolo, rose petals.
They're everywhere. I will follow that up with one that fits right in. Bolo champagne.
Bolo champagne, yo. Bolo drinks consumed.
I'm gonna go with something. It's almost an anti-bolo, but I'm gonna say bolo, a missing axe.
Oh, good one. That's a really good one. Bolo, cupping someone's face with a hand.
I'm gonna go with bolo masks. Masks in general.
Bolo being cold and telling someone about it. As married men, we probably hear this a lot.
Yeah, very, very true.
Very up to date with the temperature in every room.
I will go with Bolo Taylor. Does anyone know where Taylor is?
Was it Tamara? Tamara?
Was it?
Yeah, I think it's Tamara.
Tamara.
I only know that because of the subtitles.
All right. Hold on a second. I'm going to go with Bolo Tamara.
Good one.
Does anyone know where Tamara is?
Bolo, Liv Tyler being startled by noises.
It's a great one right off the bat.
Yep.
Right away, you're like, all right, see what we're getting into here. I'm going to say Bolo cigarettes.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. The bottoms of the floors of cars, just everywhere. Bolo, the Liv Tyler one. Bolo, Liv Tyler whispering her lines.
Does she have any other way of speaking?
I don't think she can speak at full volume. She can scream and she can whisper. That's about it.
I will go, and this is very relatable, but Bolo cell phones.
Yep. And their chargers. Bolo, now, this is not a spoiler, but I'm a big, and you are too, Better Call Saul fan, and there was the wrap-up of the entire series. And this came up in the final episode, and I saw this in this movie. I've never had it. It sounds great, but Bluebell ice cream. It was a big part of the final episode for Saul, and this is the Bluebell ice cream you will see in this movie.
That's a good one. I've never had it either. I feel like I'm going to have to get some, though.
It looks delicious.
I'm going to say Bolo trinkets. There's a lot of trinkets in this house.
I'm in a house with trinkets. I'm in the wrong place. This is my last one. Bolo head tilts.
It's like I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to tilt.
You can say a lot with a little head tilt.
I'll go my last one. Bolo, a really annoying red light.
That red light is... I kept looking at my TV if there was a problem. So if you think there's something wrong with your TV, there isn't. All right, that's all I got. Do you have any more?
I'm tapped out.
All right, let's get to drink to pair with the movie. My suggestion is a bottle of champagne that starts off cold. Maybe you get home from work and you undo the tie and you just sort of plop down on the couch, but you only drink it out of the bottle. And whether or not, and by the end, if it's warm or whatever, that's what you still continue to drink. You continue to drink miserably while you watch a very eerie and sort of sad horror movie.
I like that. I feel like it takes you... It's a drink that changes with the film, as it should. I think that's perfect. I like that a lot. I'm going to go with just a plain old glass of whiskey. And I want you to go into your liquor cabinet and sort of push aside the bottles at the front that you're used to and just find that old dusty bottle in the back and pour yourself that and just settle in. Get comfortable, and just sort of feel like you're in some old house. And just enjoy that.
Phenomenal. This house looks like it would have some old dusty whiskey in the back of a couple different drawers here. I think that's the perfect drink to put you in the right state of mind for this movie. All right, this is your chance to go watch the movie. Have fun, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, enjoy.
Enjoy.
I just want to tell you something.
What do you want to tell me?
You are my girl.
What is that?
It's okay, there's nothing here. I haven't heard a dog bark or a car pass. Nothing.
There's someone out there.
We gotta get out of here. Then open the door, and I just want you to run, okay?
Why are you doing this to us? Because you were home.
Slept On Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Nice and feeling pretty down right now, I'm sure. A little grim.
Yeah, not the most uplifting of films.
Nope, but very, very entertaining. I got a couple questions here for you. Have you ever smoked a cigarette?
I have definitely smoked a cigarette. I used to smoke cigarettes. I don't know if I've smoked a cigarette since college. I probably have. But, I went through that college phase of like, oh, I only smoke after having like 4 drinks or whatever. Then it's,
Yeah, you have 4 drinks every night.
Right. But I certainly never had a car that was covered in packs of cigarettes. And I also never went somewhere at 4 or 5 in the morning to go get a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, while the person you're going to get it for has a cigarette at home.
Right.
And after someone knocks on the door, you just, all right, sorry, honey, I'm going to go leave.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was what was wrong about the premise. It said that while he was gone, someone knocked on the door, but like that knock happened before he left.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I looked up the perfect way to do rose petals in a bath if you ever need to do this. Because they were like, is it before or after? I don't know.
Yep.
Both wrong. The optimal way, from what I read, is about halfway through. You put the petals in under the faucet, and it disperses it and brings out the aroma of the roses.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Have you ever spread petals of any flowers around.
Yeah, horribly. And can't even remember if they stayed or I had to clean it up. Like, you need a lot more than you think. It's not like if you try to buy a rose or two and you pick off some petals and put it down, it's like, oh, this rose just fell apart. It doesn't. You need a lot of rose petals for it to actually have the effect you're going for.
I imagine it's not easy to clean up too. Like, it probably you're like sweeping it and it kind of rolls up a little bit and then gets stuck in the carpet.
Yeah, and you don't want it to go down the drain, right? So you got to get those all out. I guess it's the thought that counts. And what is your knock sequence?
I think I do like one and then like one or two.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe three. But like one to like announce you're there, and then three to be like, oh, it wasn't just the wind.
Exactly. You can't just do one.
Yeah.
But everyone has their little. There was a number of different knocks on the house, and they kept mixing it up. So very sure. Like sometimes you're in the bathroom and someone gives like a crazy knock sequence. You're just like, are you serious out there? Like 5 knocks, or they're pounding, or it's just one, and you're not sure if someone just like hit the door.
Yeah, one is bad because then you're just like, do I say something? Like, what's the deal here? Was that a knock? Was that an accident?
All right, let's get to the draft. You have the number 1 pick.
My first pick is this is kind of just the sort of aura of the whole thing, but I'm going to go with the sparseness of the film. I just loved. We talked about this a little bit in the first half, but it's basically in one house. You have 2 main people. There's obviously Mike comes in for a bit. You have 3 villains. That's pretty much it. There's a few flashes of people at the wedding early on, but it almost felt like a movie, a much better version of a movie that you would think, hey, I could make this movie myself. Like I basically have a film studio in my phone right now. I could come up with an idea. Let's do this. I could make this film. Obviously, this is a much better version of that, but I love that idea of there's, you don't need the special effects. You don't need the big budget. This was just someone with a great idea, a great vision, and they just nailed it. And it's simple and it's clean. There's nothing wasted. I just thought that was great.
Yeah, that's great. You saw the screenwriter and the director, who's the writer. He won a screenwriting contest that was picked up by Universal, and it just sat there for 2 years until he hopped on the project. And I think this was his first time even directing it, but absolutely crushed it. And you're right, the sparseness of it was absolutely perfect. And the fact that it was, if it went on longer, 20 minutes longer, it probably would have felt like a drag, but it absolutely does not feel like this. For a movie that is so sparse, it kind of flies by.
Definitely. I think there was everything there was intentional.
Yeah, great pick. I think I love, because my wife gets tricked up on it, and she had a friend that stayed with us for a bit, and she got tricked up on it too, but inspired by true events, when you start a movie off by doing that, it like half the audience is already going to be like, oh, this really happened. Or if you do based on true events, you don't have to have any reality. All you have to do is kind of like have a similar story to something that may have happened kind of before. But it's enough to put you in the headspace with that great voice actor who was reading the stats. It's all that one scene, but like the intro where he's reading about the amount of violent crimes in America, and then it goes from like inspired by true events to like on this day the Hoyts or whatever were coming home, and it made it seem like this was an actual thing that happened. So anytime you do that in a movie, especially when it's not true, it's just the best. I mean, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This really happened, even though it didn't. Just a couple words at the beginning just make you think that this could happen.
Totally agree on the voice too. Like that voice was so perfect. Whatever that man says, I believe is true.
Absolutely.
So he tells me,
and I'm afraid.
Oh, absolutely. He tells me this is based on a true story. I don't need to look it up. I don't need to give it a second thought. This is based on a true story because that man told me so. I believe him. It's
the perfect kind of movie for it too. I don't think they'll step on any other toes, but if this is right in your wheelhouse of scary type of movies, the possibility, this is what people fear. Like most people aren't running guns and having like this elaborate lifestyle. They're just normal people, but we're still afraid of like home invasions. And this like hits that right on the nail on the head with like, what if somebody just murderers come by and they just want to kill me? It doesn't really happen in real life very often. That's why it's a big deal when it does. But when you see this movie, it makes it like, it reinforces that little scared part of you that are like, oh, people are going to come in here and kill me for no reason.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes this movie. It's one of the things that makes this movie so great. It's so relatable, right? Like
Right.
everyone is at home at night. That's what people do at night. They're at home. Especially if you're in some sort of random place where there's not a lot of neighbors. This could happen, and that's sort of what the creepiness just seeps into your brain. Where you're like, all right, I'm already sort of teed up by this was a true story. I'm in a house right now. It's nighttime. It all sort of just starts seeping into your brain, and all of a sudden you're scared out of your mind.
Yeah, you said Mrs. Stan Steamer couldn't even watch this because it would be too scary.
Oh yeah, definitely too scary. I mean, I feel like we from time to time will go, on vacation or take a weekend somewhere, and we'll get an Airbnb, maybe in the middle of nowhere, just some relaxing place. That would totally come to an end if we watch this.
That's great. My second pick would be how scary it is being found when you're hiding in a closet. So like when Liv was hiding, a lot of times there's scenes where it can go either way, like in Always Sunny, to bring it back to Dennis, had a whole episode where they're like hiding in a closet and you never quite know if they can see you or not. You think they can, but you're not sure. So you're not quite sure which way it's going to go, if they can obviously see you or they can't. But once they see that you're there, it's so like jarring when you get found out. I remember being like a little kid, and you're playing hide and seek and you choose the closet and they open the door.
Oh yeah.
It's horrible.
It's a high risk, high reward scenario. That moment when they open the door, there's nowhere you're going to go. You
back yourself in the corner.
Yeah. It always brings me back to the first Halloween movie where Laurie's in the closet and Michael's got his arm coming through the wood slats of the knife, and one of the greatest horror scenes of all time.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, that the claustrophobia, the no way out, everything about it, that's great.
This movie is 1% away from qualifying, so we can't do it. But if you ever saw Saving Silverman with Jack Black hiding in the shower and he gets found out and he has that like really sincere scare feeling, it's a great scene. I recommend looking at that. It's the real embodiment of being found behind the curtain or in a closet.
I like that pick a lot. My second pick, I'm going to go with the entire Mike story arc. I thought from the minute he shows up to the minute he gets his face blown off, the whole thing was fantastic. It's short, but everything about it, it's super intense. You have that scene with him walking down the hallway, and you know that there's a shotgun lined up at the door, and he's walking right towards it, and you can feel what's happening or about to happen. But there's also the guy in the mask right behind him. You're like, oh, well, maybe this guy's going to get him. I don't know what's worse. Something horrible is about to happen, and there's no stopping it. And I was just glued to the TV for that entire scene. It was super creepy, super short. It almost, I felt like, could have been its own short film, just that little bit, and that would have been great.
Yeah. Mike's Night could have been a short film for sure. And what a good buddy he is. He was there helping. He helped with the rose petals. It was a 2-man job. Yep. And he's there after the wedding, probably having a great time there. He has to leave early to go pick up his buddy. Gets a windshield smash. He's just a good friend. And then, when he's walking down that hallway, you're like, well, you're dying somehow. It's one of these two ways. And he probably got shot in the face because they didn't want somebody else's face being shown during this movie besides Liv and the guy's face. So 2.5 faces in this movie.
His reaction when his windshield gets shattered was just perfect.
Yeah.
It was so really just like, it was like, whoa, what the fuck? It was so perfect.
Yeah. He's a great actor. I don't think he's just like funny on Always Sunny, but I've seen him in some other stuff and he's really good.
So I love that whole story arc.
Yeah. Great pick.
My third pick, I'm going to take the music. I thought all the music that they played in the film was perfect. It was super creepy. I liked how they had the records playing on the record player and that being part of sort of the soundtrack of the film. They were all songs I hadn't heard before, but sort of fit the era of the house really well, fit the creepiness of the whole situation really well. The intruders also use music as a tool when they're hiding in the room and the intruders are in the house. They put some music on as well. I just thought the whole way that music was used as a almost like another character in the movie was just great.
So good. I think I can loop this in, but the song that was skipping, I thought like that scene where the song was skipping over and over again, it was like getting really, really loud, and it was just like so much going on. You felt that anxiety yourself, like you were Liv Tyler, and she just screams out like, "Go away!" It was just like it was too much, and that's how you were feeling as like the audience member with that record playing over and over and over again. And I looked up that song. Joanna Newsom is the performer. Sprout and the Bean, the song, and married to I find one of the funniest actors out there, Andy Samberg.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a couple.
What a couple. Very creative. Yeah, the music of this is incredible. I always love songs, movies that have a score, but like also like the music that the characters hear are the music that we hear too.
Yeah. No, I love that too. I think that it's another one of those things that just draws you in to the movie.
Absolutely. And adds to the timeless element too, because those songs are just like folksy, could be played at any era. Third pick here. I'm going to go with quiet. I'm going to pick it because I hate them. Quiet, angry car rides. I can't stand them. Like as maybe because I'm a child of divorce, but like when there's that like tension in the car and you can't talk and you're coming off of a fight or something happened and you just have that quiet ride in the beginning of the movie where they're just sitting at the red light and there's a little tear and you know something just happened between them and there's going to be that awful quiet ride. When my wife and I have driven across the country a few times, and the first time, like I don't think I'd ever gone more than like 5 hours with somebody in a car. And I was just terrified of like driving through Kansas, going from Boston to California and just having like a quiet state for whatever stupid argument would happen. Because I absolutely can't stand the quiet, tense rides in a car.
Yeah, we no longer go on road trips because we had some quiet incidents in the car, and we realized, we looked back on this and said, this is not for us. This was just not a good scene for us.
That's awesome. Well, you know your limits.
Now we have a cap. It's like, I don't know, 3-4 hours. Beyond that, we're not driving.
Yeah, we've done it. We've gone across the country, I think, 5 times. I think that's enough. So, sleeper pick?
Yeah, what you got?
The 4 a.m. knock. The 4 a.m. knock when you're in a remote place is terrifying. When you didn't quite know what time it was, you knew it was like after a wedding and they had a time and they had a fight and everything else. But once that knock hit, when you heard the knock, they scanned over to the clock and it was like, and he's like, isn't it like 4 a.m., which is a terrifying time to have somebody knock.
Nothing good is going to come from that knock.
No, probably shouldn't open the door.
That's a great pick. Yeah, no, I think that's just it's just a creepy situation. I'm going to take for my sleeper pick, and this is one of these things that comes up in movies all the time, and not so much in real life, but occasionally you will get it in real life. But I'm going to go with knife sounds.
Ooh.
I love when there's a good knife sound in the movie, and I don't mean like a stabbing. I just mean the kind of like shing, like when you pick up a knife out of a drawer or it knocks something. And this movie had some great knife sounds, and
the dragging of a knife across a table.
Oh yeah. So just absolutely fantastic knife sounds. I feel like they must, I don't know, put a microphone on it or add that afterwards, but because the sounds they get in movies for knives, they're sort of like amped up versions of the real life sound, but they're fantastic, and they did a great job here. So sleeper pick.
Yeah. You try to make those sounds like pulling the knife out of your cutting out of your knife block, and there's nothing.
Yes, it's never quite as in. That's like the closest you can get is if you're using one of those knife sharpening sticks. I don't know what the name for those is, but that's the closest you can get.
Yeah, I've used that just for the sound before, not really. I probably wasn't helping.
Right.
With the edge of the knife.
Like, I got to hear the sound, right? That's probably what they do for the sound effect, right? I mean,
yeah, probably. All right, great pick. You want to get to our superlative?
This week we have the worst decision in the movie. So this movie is one of these movies that I wish I saw in theaters, because this is one of these movies that you will just be yelling at the screen the entire time. Why did you do that? Go back inside. Don't answer the door. Whatever it is. And I love going to horror movies on opening night where you know there's going to be a lot of our audience participation and just being a part of that yelling at the screen. This is a perfect movie for it. It's almost like it's that Geico commercial where they're in a like ridiculous horror movie, and it's just like, let's go hide behind the chainsaws. It's like this movie has so many of those elements. So lots to choose from.
So many to choose from. Lots of mistakes by the characters, and so many bad decisions. I had to bring my wife back on to the podcast because she has a big problem with one of the decisions made by the couple.
I mean, everyone should have a problem with that decision, which is opening the door at 4 a.m. after you've just been fighting, you're having like the shittiest night, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, okay, there's a knock at the door. Nobody should even be awake or alive. No.
That's a great pick, because not only had they just been fighting and did they have a horrible night, but things were about to turn around. They were getting a little frisky. And then the knock comes and you're like, okay, let's just stop what we're doing here and go answer the door at 4 a.m. Come on.
Who knows if that was about to save their marriage? And they stop and open the door and open up themselves to what just happened.
I don't know that anything can save a marriage after that, but very good optimism.
So what would you do if you heard a knock at 4 a.m?
Just pretend to be sleeping. I mean, who cares if you're sleeping or not? What are they going to do? Unless somebody's banging on the door saying like police, sheriff, something like that, there's no way in hell I'm opening any door. There's no way.
Yeah, there were a lot of questionable decisions. It did make me think of that. I'm going to botch this, but that George Carlin quote where he says, "Think of how dumb the average person is, and then think about how half of all people are dumber than that."
Right. So half the people are dumber. Terrifying.
But I mean, I also get they're under a lot of stress. It's late at night. They've been drinking. They're not in their peak decision-making capacity at any point in this movie.
Yeah, right. Because he's fine. If they've been drinking, he's fine going out for cigarettes shortly after this. But...
Yeah. I was going to say that's the other one. Is like, let me just go leave you after some stranger knocked on the door and had this weird thing. Let me leave you and go drive and get cigarettes by myself. Like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. I need to clear my head. No. None of this makes any sense.
Counterpoint, that was a great move because he got himself out of the house.
Under the guise of like, oh, I'll help you out. You need that little thing that you don't really care about, right?
Right.
Do you know where the knocking, like this, the true events or whatever part is based off of, did you read this?
Yeah, it was some sort of incident when he was a kid. The director.
Yeah, when he was a kid, there were people in his neighborhood who would rob houses, but it was sort of the opposite. So it happened to his house where his little sister was home at an odd hour, and there were people who would go around the neighborhood asking for someone who doesn't live there just to see if somebody comes to the door and is there. And if they're not there, then they rob the house. So he sort of flipped that, combined that with the helter-skelter scenario, with Manson, and did that and like used his childhood to be like, well, what if they didn't leave and that was their reason to come into the house because you were home?
Right.
So if they didn't open the door, they probably would have just moved on along to the next house.
Yeah, that's probably right. Although it seems from the neighborhood, maybe that next house might have been like 2 miles down the road.
True. Well, great choice.
Great choice. For this one, I wanted to go, I'm not going to go with my gut here, but my gut was saying that the worst decision in this movie, and I think in many ways this movie could be viewed as an allegory related to this decision, but it is proposing to somebody at somebody else's wedding. That is the absolute worst thing you can do. And I think that there's an argument that this entire movie is just about these are the horrible things that will happen to you if you propose to your significant other at a wedding. I think that there's a big part of this movie that is just, that's the lesson to be learned. You do that, horrible things happen to you. Like when you go to a wedding, you have one job. Your one job is do not make a scene. That's it. That's all it is. And by proposing to somebody, you're upstaging someone on their own wedding, making it about yourself. Like this is not your day. Do that the next day.
It's a lesson that most people have a hard time learning. This isn't about you. And that night is not about you. And this was going to be my choice for worst decision, but I'm going to combine it with yours. Asking someone to marry you without knowing the answer beforehand. Don't do that. You should have had these conversations like, hey, when we get married and we have kids and you walk through it all, pulling her out from she's having a great time at the party. She's laughing and sipping a drink and he interrupts her conversation, pretends like he's going to take her to like go dance, carries her out and then proposes to her while she was not in the right state of mind for that. And it's at somebody else's wedding.
Yeah, she was probably like, are you insane? Of course I won't say yes right now. This is somebody else's wedding.
Right. I might have said yes until you proposed to me here.
Right. Right. I would totally rethink everything I knew about someone if I knew that they were proposing to somebody at somebody else's wedding.
Yeah, I know I wouldn't go to theirs.
But having said that, I don't think that's really in the spirit of what our category is this week. So that was my gut, but for my formal choice, I will not take that. For my formal choice, I will officially select leaving the room once they shot Mike. They had a shotgun. They were under a desk. It clearly works. One person walked by the door, got his head blown off. So just post up there, wait till daylight, and you have a shotgun. You're in pretty good shape. So I think that was their single worst decision.
I couldn't agree more. Playing Call of Duty a few years ago, you'd have the shield. You just back yourself in a corner. You get the gun when they come in the door. You blast them. It's like you said, it was proven to work. Mike had no chance. He dipped his head around the corner for 2 seconds.
1 for 1.
It's almost like, oh, it's too bad it's him, but we know this is the right strategy.
Right, exactly. Take the training wheels off now.
As opposed to running out into the field with a shotgun.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Like I said, I was going to pick the asking a girl to marry you part, but we already covered that. So I'll just go with every decision James made. I think James is the worst, and maybe she finally realized it. Maybe he had some money and he was kind of a pretty boy, but clearly had no patience and sense of like other people when he asked her to marry him. He made every wrong decision in the book. He was a dick. He even lied about like growing. He revealed himself to be a liar. He's like, oh yeah, apparently I used to hunt with my dad all the time. And then he's like, nah, that's just something I said. And she just looks at him like, all right, well, why did you fucking lie about that? He goes out for cigarettes. He doesn't open the chute for the fire that he makes.
Yeah, that fire.
He doesn't like, we talk about this all the time, but like the guy never believes the wife when something awful happens. She's like, honey, someone broke into the house. He's like, no one broke in the house. What? Do you think your wife, whatever, your partner is crazy enough where you wouldn't believe that they tell you someone broke in the house and you're just like, get out of here.
Right.
Yeah, just dismissing her opinion or her view, her telling you the facts that you weren't here and someone came in here. I'm bleeding.
No, definitely plenty of poor decisions throughout, but I do think we can cut them a little bit of slack given it's been a very stressful night. I'm sure they were drinking all day. It's the middle of the night. People make bad decisions in the best of circumstances. So I get all the, hey, let's split up, or hey, let's like give up our great position we have here. I get it. It happens. But
yeah, you're right. It could have just been like one of those nights.
Yep.
Yeah, good point. All right, let's move along to one change to be a blockbuster for a movie that kind of was a blockbuster.
Yeah, I got a couple. One we touched on. The whispering got a little old. I'm sure it wasn't just me, but I feel like maybe just tone down the whispering a little bit. I get a lot of the times they're sort of hiding, they're trying not to be heard, but there are other times where I think people are just whispering for the hell of it. So I could do without so much of the whispering. I don't know if that's sort of enough to tip the scales and to really make this a blockbuster, or more of a blockbuster, I suppose. The other one I had, it was the stabbing scene at the end. And I think that this probably turned some people off of the movie. And I do think these suspense movies, this is probably the hardest part of a sort of suspense thriller horror movie. It's the hardest part to pull off. The best part of all these movies is the lead up. It's the chase. It's all of that. And then once someone is actually captured or caught, or whatever it is, the culmination, you've lost that cat and mouse. You've lost that suspense, and it's really tough to wrap that up. But I did think that sort of stabbing scene was, I don't know, maybe a little. It was almost like kind of personal and a little bit more gory or graphic in a way that the rest of the film hadn't been. And I could see people who were into the style of the most of the film being turned off by that part of the film, and people who were into sort of more gory films might not have liked the first part of the film as much. So maybe that sort of split the audience a little bit. And if they had, I think the strength of the movie was the earlier part. So maybe you revise that ending a little bit and you sort of capture a larger portion of that like horror fandom.
I think you're totally right. The type of fans that would enjoy that might have already left the theater by that point because they hadn't got really anything besides a psychological thriller. And they didn't have, there was really, well, outside of Mike, but that was like really, really quick. There was not much else as far as gore or whatever. But that scene was very, like you said, very rough, very personal. you saw all the stabbings and she had to witness it and watch him die. Like, it was pretty gruesome, which didn't really align with the rest of the movie. So I can see, like you said, like why audiences would be a little unhappy with that. That's a good one. I don't have much either because I really enjoyed it. And my thing here is not what I would want, but starting off the movie with that tone of the couple fighting, quiet car ride, and the failed proposal, and like you're already in that sense of dread from the moment the movie starts. If you could maybe have the wedding be a little more fun and have a little more juxtaposition of like good times into horrible times, like maybe people would enjoy the beginning of the movie more. I loved how it was. I wouldn't want to change that, but as far as being more popular with other people, maybe the beginning being more Godfather-esque wedding or whatever, instead of a failed proposal and sort of that sense of dread might have won some more people over.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Because it is, as you said, sort of from the jump, you're like, this is intense. This is two people who are in a bad spot, only to get worse, obviously.
All right. What do you got for spin-off ideas, which is sort of allowed this birth, right? Like we did this because we heard that there were going to be 3 movies filmed in September, and there already was a sequel of this that I saw. But what do you got for a spin-off idea?
So for me, I think it's kind of obvious, really. And I'm curious if you have the same thing here. Mine's just I want to follow up with those 2 kids who found the bodies. I think they are obviously super creepy. They're going around handing out religious pamphlets. They have the interaction with the killers. Maybe that messes them up. And then they go into this house that's full of blood. And then Liv Tyler's character is maybe alive at the end. That's probably terrifying as well. And those kids are obviously coming from a strange background to begin with. And then they go through this horrifically traumatic event. I think 10 years from now, they are all sorts of messed up. Maybe one's really messed up and one's not. I think there's something that you could do that would just be great following them. Another sort of horror-esque movie about
maybe this is like their origin story and they end up going around with masks killing people.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's exactly what this is. This is the origin story for at least one of those 2 kids, maybe both of them.
That's awesome. I would definitely watch that. It sort of makes more sense as to why those kids were in at the end, if that was like the origin, the beginning of their journey.
Right. You're like, all right, I'm creating this whole universe as everyone does now, and you just said this is planting the seed here.
Planting a seed, leaving the breadcrumbs. Exactly. Oh, that's great. I always I'm a big fan of revenge and comeuppance and getting back at people. Big fan of that in general. So if Liv Tyler survived, let's say it's like a Kill Bill type thing where she's in rehab for years. She lost everything. She lost the guy that she feels awful that she said no, but at the end she really did love him and she probably would have said yes. She's got nothing except for the desire for revenge. So years later, she tracks down the 3, Dollface, the pinup girl, and the masked guy. And Dollface and the masked guy are married or whatever. They're still doing their killings or whatever, but the other one is just living her life and she's given up to life. But Liv stalks her just like she was stalked, goes to her like trailer and scares the shit out of her, ends up doing the knife drag, ties her up and kills her. Does the whole you're gonna die, does it right back to her, kills her, writes a little message in the blood like you're next or remember the date or some other thing, and then goes after the couple that is still killing and may have some people in their house, like they're really big on killing now and maybe torturing some other people. And she goes to their house and slowly and methodically terrorizes them and kills them both and kills them in the same fashion that she was almost killed when her husband was killed, or not husband, partner was killed, James. So it becomes a revenge tale and another origin story of how she gets back at the people who terrorized her.
I love that. I think that would be great. I agree. Revenge tales are some of the greatest movies out there. It's just there's such
because you don't need any empathy anymore. Like empathy's gone, and you can just do anything you want.
Yeah, it's a total like carte blanche for just mayhem. I feel like there was a period where I went through and watched all sorts of these Korean revenge films. It's almost like a whole genre of Korean films, these revenge films. And there are so many great ones. There was a period where I watched a lot of them. I don't know if that probably said something about the what I was going through at that time in my life, looking back on it, but they were great.
Yeah, I saw The Devil. There was also another U.S. remake. There was a director. If you find I Saw the Devil and look at
I saw that. That was great.
Yeah, there's like a trilogy of revenge movies that he makes that are just absolutely incredible and so intense and just so great.
Do you know what any of the 3 trilogies or the 3 sequels that they're making are about? Have you heard anything about those?
No clue. I mean, they don't even
I have,
start filming until September, until next month.
yeah, I haven't heard anything either, but I'm curious if either of these spin-offs end up coming to fruition.
Wow, we can. Yeah, let's see if either of our ideas come to fruition. All right, we somehow made this movie full of dread and despair a lot of fun.
I know, against all odds.
I haven't seen our next movie, but our interns suggested this movie, and the fans agree. I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen this, but I'm very excited to see it. I'm going to watch it tonight. Jennifer's Body.
It's a great movie. I saw it maybe a year ago. I'd seen it also probably closer when it came out. It's, we're doing back-to-back horror movies, but horror has such a wide array of subgenres, I guess you'd call it. And this is a very, very different film. Also fantastic. Can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, me neither. Can't wait to watch it. All right, that was a lot of fun, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, see you next time. Later.